Most Canadians have seen the cost of food prices climb, but for one group, it's becoming even more pricey. Sufferers of celiac disease are asking for help with the rising cost of groceries, which have been made all the more expensive by their medically required diet. Celiac Canada says there is no cure or treatment except to eat only gluten-free food. The association says gluten-free products cost between 150 to 500% more than regular gluten-containing equivalents. The organization is asking the federal government for a celiac grocery rebate and a flat medical tax credit of about $1,000 a year. Well, joining us now to tell us more about this is Miss Melissa Secord, National Executive Director at Celiac Canada. Miss Secord, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thank you for having me today to talk about this issue.
So can you give our viewers just some perspective on the experiences of Canadians with celiac disease, especially when doing just everyday things like grocery shopping and eating at restaurants?
Well, celiac disease, if I can let your listeners know, because a lot of them may not be aware about celiac disease, it's an autoimmune condition that is genetic, and it's a lifelong chronic condition similar to diabetes. And when people eat items that contain gluten, which is a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye, which is found in pastas and cereals and cookies and breads, the small intestine reacts and actually damages the gut, sees it as a foreign invader. And basically, it's almost like a poison to them. It strips the protective villi in their bodies, and they can't get any nutrients. So this medical nutrition therapy is super important to them. And so the only cure right now, the only treatment is a gluten-free diet, a very strict one. And people may say, oh, what's a little gluten? Well, little gluten actually can cause some really serious long-term health complications. So it's very important that these individuals get access to their medically required diet.
And in terms of in the grocery stores, we know that gluten-free food was already pricier before food inflation became a concern. Now, with grocery prices skyrocketing around the world, just how big of a price increase have we been seeing in terms of gluten-free products in particular?
Well, we were actually talking to one of our community members out in Newfoundland, and she's saying now that her grocery bill is now more than her mortgage. And we've just recently done a survey of our community. We've had 7,400 people take a survey called the State of Celiac in Canada Health Survey, and 92% of people have seen an increase in their prices of the food since the pandemic. And for them, it's also the number one concern or issue that they face, because anything they consume for food, impacts their health. And so we don't want people having to choose to not eat the diet they need because they can't afford, it's that, do I afford it, or do I eat something, but then what do I have to drop off the table that I can't do anymore? And it starts impacting, utility costs and mortgage, and food is at the top of the list, right? So we're really particularly concerned about the most vulnerable in our community.
Now, I want to touch on some of the supports out there. Now, we know Canada has a one-time grocery rebate, and the Canada Revenue Agency is allowing people with celiac disease to claim the incremental cost associated with buying gluten-free products as a medical expense. So have these programs made any difference in this issue?
Well, for the grocery rebate that's been announced, we're saying it's far too little for people with celiac disease. And while it's laudable for the government to provide that one-time grocery rebate for people who can't afford it, it just doesn't come close to the concerns and the price tag that they face every time at the grocery store. So we're asking for a larger stipend for that, but for that incremental tax benefit, it's really quite useless. And it's been around for a long time, and for someone who needs a hearing aid and it's a one-off purchase, fine. But individuals with people with celiac disease have to go to the grocery store and calculate the difference between what a regular price is of a food, let's say a regular box of pasta, compared to the gluten-free. At every level of cost, they have to basically look around and shop for other things that they don't even shop for to find out the difference in price. And they have to do that all year long and collect all the receipts. And in the end, all this work, maybe $30. And some people, they don't net out anything. And unfortunately, for the people who actually most need it, the most vulnerable, somebody can't even claim it. So it's really an unfair tax system for people with celiac disease. So we're asking for that flat tax, that flat flat claim of $1,000, because it really does cost about $1,000 extra for someone with celiac disease to meet their requirement for their health.
And we'll be watching the developments of this request again. Ms. Secord, thank you for joining us today on Forum Daily. All right, we'll be right back, but you'll want to stay with us. After the break, we're going to hear about the markets and what they've been doing so far this week with Catherine Murray from The Buck Stops Here. So stay tuned. Forum Daily will be back.